And welcome to the July 14th meeting of the Millis School Committee. My name is Carrie Roach. I am the chairperson. I'm going to start by saying this meeting is being recorded and is available on YouTube for future viewing. I'll start with attendance. Denise Gibbons.
Here.
Robin Briggs.
Here.
Mark Conroy.
Here.
Steve Catalano.
Here.
And Superintendent.
Here.
Perfect. So we only have a few things on the agenda today, so this should be relatively short meeting. I think the first action, we have no teacher rep or student rep, and I guess there's no open session, but if anyone has questions, if anyone's out there on YouTube and has questions, there is a chat feature, and we at the end of this we'll take a look at the chat feature and answer any questions. Okay, so action items, consideration to approve the 6/29 school committee meeting minutes. I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve the June 29, 2020 school committee meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Custodians, next on our action item is custodians old and new contract. Nancy, is that you?
Yeah, actually, Terry or I could speak to
Okay.
that. When the custodian contract was executed and signed on the salary grid page, we included what is an hourly breakdown on the salaries. And actually, everybody signed it, including the association, the president of the Association for Custodians, and we signed it, executed it, and then about a month or two later, they came back to us and said, actually, that was something they did not approve of, or we did not all agree on during negotiations, so they would like us to remove the hourly portion and just have it listed as a salary.
Okay. It doesn't change their rate of pay or anything. It's just
Correct.
okay.
It's really just a
Clerical change. Okay. Does somebody want to? Do we need to vote? I assume on this.
Yeah.
Anybody have any concerns with it? I'm just curious. So I wasn't part of.
I was in the room and we did
Yeah.
agree to this. There was agreement to this. This was discussed and vetted. I don't think we need to get back into the room, but I want to be clear as the school committee rep on this, to the negotiation team on this. This was discussed. It was brought up. We cleaned up a lot of language in the contract. So, like I said, I don't think we need to reopen the contract and go back to the table. But I also don't want it to be left out that this was something that was just dropped on them, because it was not. Nancy, you were in the room as well. Carrie, I think that meeting you were not there. Am I speaking out of school? I want to be clear, but my recollection is that this was discussed. It wasn't a major point of discussion, but it was absolutely discussed with their union rep.
Yeah, no, I remember this discussion, and it's really just how we represent their pay, whether it was an hourly rate or their annual salary, it equaled the same. It's really just the way they wanted to see it.
Right, and part of this was we wanted to be consistent with other contracts, with other groups who have an hourly wage opposed to a annual salary. The only annual salaries we have are for exempt staff who are administrators, or other administrative personnel. But the units all have hourly wage, and we were just trying to be consistent. So, like I said, I want the record to reflect that this was discussed, and I see 4 people who were or 3 other people in the room all shaking their heads. So that's enough. I mean, that's it for me.
Okay.
Thank you for that opportunity, Denise.
You're welcome. So with that, Madam Chair,
Ms. Gibbons.
I make a motion to, what am I doing? It's not on the agenda. To accept the changes to the custodial agreement as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so next we're going to go down to chairman's report. So we want to just discuss the fields and the reopening of the track, the playground, the basketball court, and in the baseball field, right? So I guess it's all together. We have, as a committee, we have previously closed them or asked them to stay closed because of COVID and the restrictions on people out in public and social distancing. These restrictions have lessened a bit. So there has been some requests for us to open some of these facilities with, we did reach out and get some guidance on the use of the school fields and the basketball court. So I know that there has been some organizations that have asked to be able to use the new basketball court at Clyde Brown for practices. Basketball is still on the high risk list, so there's no games permitted, but there has been, kids can go out and do basketball drills and practices. So we have been advised if we have people or have organizations that use the basketball court or the baseball fields, because we've had that request too, to sign waivers, which I don't think is unreasonable. So we have gotten a copy of a waiver from the district's council. I mean the school's council. Other districts have used the same thing. So again, just wanted to open up the discussion to the committee about the opening of the basketball courts and the baseball fields to organizations to hold practices. And in baseball, I guess it's games too, right? You're permitted to have games on the baseball field. I guess where my concern comes in is the basketball court. If we're opening it up, how do we stop just kids from the neighborhood to come in and start a pickup game? And is it okay if we just, we had talked about adding signage to say that wasn't allowed and that you needed permission from the school to use the field. We can go down that route. And then it's also, the playground. Do we open up the playground? What are our obligations as a school to the community and the playground? Is it just signs? Is it sanitation? So just looking to, again, just have that discussion and decide what we want to do as a committee about opening the fields. And John, thank you for joining. Hi. So I guess I'll open it up to the committee.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Mr. Conroy.
So a couple of questions. John might be able to help. So I've walked by a couple of times, and on the tennis court, they actually have one sign actually almost comes from the state guidance talks about 6 feet, tells them what they should be doing on tennis and pickleball courts. There's also a second sign that I thought was very good that I think if we open the playground, we should get a couple of them, but it actually says that the facility is not being sanitized, so you're using it at your own risk, which for me, the biggest issue I had is committing time to make sure that if we were going to have these open, that we were abiding by the rules that we are as owners of the facilities, that we were doing that. So I guess, John, I don't know if you can get those signs or know where they got them, and how feasible it is to get those.
So it's very feasible considering they're in my car right now.
Perfect.
They finished them up today. I picked them up today, and they'll be put out there. The playground, there's ones that label playground. There's one that label track and field. and I believe there's one that's labeled courts. And the ones that are out there now was given to us by Jim McVeigh from the Board of Health. And the other sign was developed by DPW John McVeigh and Jim McKay and Ms. Fogarty. So that's the signs that are on the 2 gates that they wanted published. All we did was we put it on the black and white and get it up there, which is pretty much no skateboarding, just the regular rules of what we'd have without COVID. And they've already made those signs, and those signs should be here sometime. Don't quote me. I thought that they said that those signs are already in process of being made now.
Okay. Steve, I can see you talking, but I can't. There you go.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So just as a tangential conversation, if that sign goes up, when we start talking about, and I know the signs are made, but when we start talking about school opening, if in fact the playground would be open during school, I think we need to clarify that the playground is not being cleaned or disinfected when school's not in session. Whether I don't think we need to redo the signs, but if that question comes up, we should say that we're looking at what the use of and the disinfectant of playground and other open spaces once school is back in session. And like I said, we don't know if we're going to be using them. So I think the clarification has to be made that this is for the summertime and when we're not in session.
Good point.
And then one other question, Madam Chair. The waiver, I know when we do facility rental, there is a waiver that's part of that. Do we need to look at our existing waiver form and see if it needs to be updated or revised due to COVID and other health-related issues? Is it adequate as is, or do we need to have our lawyers look at it to see if it should be updated?
I mean, I think if we're planning on renting any space going forward in the COVID era, we should adopt that COVID language in there,
Okay.
whether it's a separate waiver or we incorporate that into the existing waiver.
Okay, so I think that's important that and maybe we have a comprehensive one that says during public health issues, and maybe it's its own paragraph, however we do it, but we should update and have one consistent waiver for all facilities.
Yep. Terry, did you have something? Oh, we can't hear you. Nope. When we can't hear him, just say no. That's okay.
We can all shake our heads at the same time.
Yeah.
Might take a while.
We'll catch up with you, Terry. Or put it in the chat.
There you go. Type fast.
So while he's doing that, I guess, is there any other concerns from the committee or John or Nancy or anyone about opening the public spaces for public use? Madam
Chair?
Mr. Conroy?
This isn't a concern. It's more a question of, because we know that there are groups who would like to reserve time on the outdoor, specifically on the outdoor court. What can be our process? Because truthfully, I'd rather have it occupied by as many scheduled people as possible, just to minimize the opportunity, because the simple fact is it's going to be a free-for-all when there's nobody up there and there's not a lot we're going to be able to do about it. But how can we communicate to, or who should we refer people to who are looking to use it? And also, is there a way for us to, and this is more of an operational question, give them some type of evidence that if they go up there and say they reserved it from 3 to 4, and there's kids up there, that they have the ability to tell the kids that are up there that they have to leave and they have the space.
Nancy.
Madam Chair, I can speak to, we have a basketball camp that will be operating, and the process we had for Dave Fallon's camp is to develop a plan and get approval from the Department of Public Health. And so he worked with us to put a plan together about following the guidelines for what phase we're in as a state, to make sure that they follow all the guidelines and ensure the safety of kids. So that's indoor. We also have a request from the baseball, Millis Youth Baseball, the Babe Ruth level team. They would like to use our baseball field, and so we asked them to develop a plan, and we approve it, and John McVeigh, as our Department of Public Health official, approves it. We had not yet had the discussion on the basketball court. I haven't received any requests from anybody to use it yet, but I would imagine it would be the same process. And then it would be just politely explaining, we have the court reserved for this time. We would inform Chris Fogarty and all the folks at Town Hall about it. And then people would, have to not use it during the time that the group had reserved it.
So would the reservations go through Jody, or who's going to manage it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually there's a facility rental form that, a reservation form that goes through Jody. She confers with John Engler, but the added step, since the basketball court is half on school land, half on town land, would be that we'd loop in the town folks, probably Chris Fogarty or whoever might be in charge in her stead.
Can I just a thought, if I could, Carrie? So the facility calendar that I oversee is for all of the people in the school. So anybody who is in the school can see it. And if an outside group wants to use the auditorium or whatever, a library, cafeteria, whatever it is, they do contact me. And this is just a thought. Is it possible to create a public calendar where people go and look and say, oh, Tuesday, I need 2 hours to play basketball. And then they can say to me, I see Tuesday is free. And that way you can also, and we can address it maybe in a listserv to the community and say, we have a public calendar. This is how you access this. This is how you see when the courts are available, so that when somebody comes up and says to whomever might be there that didn't book it, we have that booked. Please go look at the public calendar. That will kind of maybe eliminate some of the controversy or conflict.
No, I think that's a great idea, Jody. If we can have some sort of public facing calendar that people can take a look at. Nancy, we have it, although you may not have had a formal request for the basketball court. We've been asked, several members of the committee have been asked what the process is, if they want to hold a team practice there. So, I mean, it's a beautiful court. So I don't doubt that it's going to be highly sought after for teams, especially in the nice weather, and people want to be, it's better to be outside. And even if the basketball camps, want to reserve it too, that they have a way to go on and people can see when it's being utilized by the school or by a group. So yeah, Jody, that would be great if we could figure out how to do that.
I can work with tech on that because they help me create the Google calendars, and we can go from there.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
I wonder. Oh.
I also think that people should be told to have their facility rental or the facility fee,
waiver?
The waiver that's been approved with them. So in the meantime of getting the calendar up and running, which I think is a great idea, Jody, is that someone could say, well, look at here, I have the waiver that says, or the form that says I have this booked every Tuesday for the next 3 weeks from this time. So it may help alleviate some of the tension, because eventually someone's going to say, I don't believe you, or I don't trust you. at least if they have the form, it could help.
So I do want to clarify in the waiver too, that the waiver has to be signed by not just the, if it's the Millis Youth basketball or baseball, but every participant has to have a waiver signed too. So if there's, 12 kids on your team that are coming to play baseball on the school field, each kid has to have the waiver signed.
And what I meant to carry, I said waiver, but I meant the actual form, the application form.
Oh yeah, like the reservation form or something. Yes.
Because that gets approved after there's sometimes a vote of us, and that gets signed off. So then they will have a final copy that says this is your facility. You can use the facility for this period of time, for this long of a time.
Madam Chair. And just to clarify for community groups that might be listening, the facility rental, it's called a reservation form, has to be submitted to Jody, and then the principal signs off, the director of operations and the superintendent internally. It comes to school committee when it involves a waiver of the fees. So they, for example, you can't be a group thinking, oh, let's hold practice tomorrow night and expect for the process to be that quick. I would say, they'd have to submit it a week in advance or so to get the signatures. And then also Jody will send them the waiver form that they would then collect all the signatures of their participants.
The only other thing too, sorry.
Go ahead, Jody.
The only other thing that comes to mind is somebody sort of monopolizing the court time. So I don't know if there's really a way to make that not happen, but you don't want someone to say, I want 6 hours every Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you can police that strictly, but I guess you're in danger of having that occur. People figure, okay, first come, first serve. I'm going to book as much as I can.
So I had a response to that, I guess. I was wondering if we could book in like free play time so that people know like the court is always going to be available at this time for practicing or whatever, so that it can't be booked during that time, so people can book or something like that. I don't know if that's too micromanaging, but that was my thought.
I mean, I think let's let it get open and see what the interest is with groups and kids, and maybe if it gets to a point where we have to say there's no groups after this time or between these for the only issue is free play right now for kids on a basketball court can't be playing basketball, and that's why we're saying that if groups want to have practices, I'd rather, and Mark said, we'd rather have groups there because we know that the kids are being monitored and are doing what they're supposed to with basketball. Once the restrictions lessen for basketball, hopefully they're allowed to play full games and that kind of thing. But free play for basketball courts is tough right now with the restrictions that are still in place. But I get it, and I think we should definitely monitor it. And if it looks like there's groups that are booking the court all the time and there's no time for just kids that are walking around in the community that want to play basketball, then we need to revisit it.
Yeah, the only other comment that I have, Madam Chair, is I was wondering if we could link the form to rent the facilities in this video at the bottom. I don't know if Dave can do that now for the folks that are listening or watching this video that are interested in that, so that they don't have to like hunt around on the site or figure out where the form is.
I don't know if Dave has access to it right now, but maybe we can. Jody, where did you say where the form is?
So if you go to Millis Public Schools website, I'm going to look for you. I have to see what it's called. I think it's under community.
Okay.
It's under community?
I think so, but I'm going to look while we're talking here.
Maybe we send out a listserv with Yep. Oh, and Dave just sent a chat saying he can link the form once the video is finished, and he posts the video. Thanks, Dave.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Conroy.
One, just because it's a couple of people have mentioned fees. I don't know that we've charged, because I'm not sure we've had people reserve the outdoor court very much. So I just want to, personally, I don't think we should charge this summer for the outdoor court, especially because I don't think we ever have.
I agree. Does anyone
Okay.
else have a different opinion?
I completely agree.
Also agree.
The form is under community on the Millis Public School website.
Thank you, Jody.
And it is not one of the areas that we have fees developed for, so it wouldn't be fee-based right now anyway.
Correct. Okay, so since we voted to close the facilities, the outdoor facilities, I think it's appropriate to vote to open them with the proper signage.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Catalano,
I make a motion to approve the opening of the outdoor facilities with the appropriate signage and the use of a special waiver due to pandemic conditions be signed by any team using it. Yes, that's it.
So
I
these
don't know if
people,
I need to say it more.
they need to sign a waiver when they, so you're going to open the fields and anybody who wants to use the fields has to sign a waiver, which we have a form.
not anyone that's walking around in the community. If somebody wants to walk the track in the community, that's if teams want to hold organized practices.
Organized
or
groups or
games.
teams, right.
The,
Second.
the signage is in place for community members that choose to use the facilities at their own risk. I hate to say it that way, but because there's no sanitation and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay, I heard a second.
Denise, will you second?
Yeah.
That was
It's been
me.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
So does that mean that they're open right now that we approved it, or is it going to open tomorrow?
As soon as John can put the signs up. John, do we know, we have an idea tomorrow, the next day?
Yeah, we'll make sure the signs are up, the playground's swept up and ready for access for.
Thank you. Okay, that takes care of fields. Next, we'll go to superintendent's report. If you want to give us a quick update on our fall reopening.
Yes, thank you. So on Friday, we received a little bit more guidance that I sent along to the school committee from the Department of Education, basically requesting that we not finalize any plans until the end of July and submit them on July 31st, because so much is still up in the air. Budget is still up in the air, and they have yet to act on the state budget and Chapter 70, et cetera. So that is one thing. And the recommendation is that even though we're developing 3 plans, one plan for trying to get 100% of our students back to school, a second plan for a hybrid where approximately half the kids attend at a time, and then the third being for fully remote. And the instructions are for districts to be able to flex between those at any time, because we know that right now Massachusetts is in pretty good shape in terms of the virus, but that could change. And so we have to be ready to respond to that. So we were supposed to receive a template for our plans yesterday. That has not happened. We're still awaiting guidance on transportation. The commissioner did say they will be providing a playbook for us of how to handle if a student becomes ill and if a student tests positive, all a flow chart and scenarios of what to do. We do have the guidance that's come out already from CDC. But they're also looking into more things and hopefully going to provide us guidance on things that they've said heretofore are not possible, such as band and chorus, because of the air. They have recommended that we not have band and chorus with any singing or wind instruments or brass instruments. So they're looking into that more, will provide us with any maybe ideas or creative solutions there. And science labs, we know, are also problematic in terms of maintaining the minimum distancing recommended. We do know that we'll be getting more information about providing extra time for teachers to be trained. Also, the Department of Ed is trying to provide us with some assessments and instructional resources, especially for if we have to go fully remote again. Some online standalone, perhaps, ways that kids, that will be a support to districts if we have to go remote again. So, you know, we're waiting for a lot of information, but that said, our groups, our planning groups are meeting frequently, developing our response, our 3 plans, and the we have subgroups in different categories addressing different aspects, and then the principals will be mobilizing. They've already been obviously meeting with teachers and staff, but they will also be including some parents at the building level for finalizing ideally the 3 plans. That said, you know, I think we all recognize that this is all of the discussions we've been having for the last, 2-3 months about the fall. Best laid plans will need to be adjusted. Once we get in, we will need to be adjusting as we go and responding to the actuality of, you know, it's kind of like the engineering design process that we have our kids using. You try something, you test it, you prototype it, it doesn't work well, you improve upon it, much like we did at the beginning of last year when we opened Clyde Brown. First day for drop off for parents was not ideal, but quickly we got a different, refined those procedures for drop off and dismissal, et cetera, and we'll be needing to adjust as we go.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Conroy.
Nancy, you had mentioned that at some point in the process before things are finalized, getting feedback from community and staff, et cetera. Given today is the 14th, where are those in the schedule for the teams so that we're finalized for a submission for 7/31?
You mean the next set of surveys to send out to parents?
Whatever the plan is for obtaining the feedback, I would assume you'd want to get that out, get the initial kind of submission or set of information out to people to provide feedback, and then allow for any adjustments. And we're kind of working up against that 7/31 deadline. And I know there's some stuff now from the state, like transportation, et cetera, but so when does the team think that kind of next round of feedback request is going to go out?
We'll be sending out another round of surveys. We were waiting until we had something new to report from the Department of Ed and say, this is the latest update, and given that, please tell us your thoughts and your plans. But next Tuesday on the 21st, the team is going to be presenting our draft high-level plans to school committee, and that would be the time when we all along we'll be welcoming feedback and about the plans. But I can say that given what we don't know about transportation, but we're making informed guesses based on previous information, that we will be able to meet or exceed the DESE state guidelines that have been put forth so far. but that would be, I think on the 21st would be a perfect time to get feedback. We could send out a survey right after that.
One other question. In the initial survey, just because I saw some articles from other towns, like for example, Lexington in their first one had like 60% of people say they weren't coming back. Do we have the results from our initial one? And can you share just, I think the two big questions were, are you coming to school and are you planning on sending your kids on the bus?
Yeah. I can't do that from the top of my head. In detail, only broadly, that around, it ranged between 70 to 85% of our parents indicated at present they would feel comfortable sending their students back to school. And for the bus question, it was about 50-50, which we realized that's what we normally have. We have about 50% in a normal year of our kids riding the bus. So what we need to do is further refine that question to be, if your students normally do ride the bus, will you feel comfortable still continuing to ride the bus? So that we're excluding, somehow we'll structure it so we exclude people who don't normally ride the bus.
Okay, so I guess if we have 15 to 30% of families potentially not coming, does that kind of automatically kick us into a hybrid model because we know we're not going to have everybody here?
Right. It depends on, so hybrid is used in two ways. We will always be in a hybrid because there will always be a small percentage, perhaps, of students whose families don't feel comfortable them coming to school, or they have underlying medical conditions that would preclude that. So what we've learned from the countries in Europe that have opened is that, let's say, 20% of our students currently, the families don't feel comfortable coming to school with the current guidelines. So that 20% would be served remotely at home. So we have to put in place, even though most of our kids are fully back in, we always have to plan for the kids who either are medically unable to come to school, or it's not advisable, or their families just prefer to keep them home. And that's what the Department of Ed is trying to provide districts with some resources to do, because our teachers will be teaching full time. So then it begs the question, who provides the remote learning, because our teachers will be teaching full time. So that's one type of hybrid model. The other type of hybrid model is if what Lexington did, for example, is if they, with older buildings or in a community that has a high COVID rate right now, or many other conditions, if they felt that they could not meet the DESE guidelines, then with 100% of our kids back, or even 80, 85, 90% of our kids back, then they would plan a hybrid model of week A, week B, or 2 days on with 3 days off, etc. Those types of where all the kids would be in a hybrid situation, not just the ones that are choosing or must stay home. So they use hybrid both ways.
So to complicate matters on your end in planning, are you planning for that second?
Yes.
Of A, B, days, weeks, whatever it is, as well as just we know we're going to have 10, 15, 30% of kids who are just not going to come regardless.
Yes, we are.
You guys building both of those?
Yes, we have to submit that plan as well as, so 3 plans we have to develop, but we had been developing that all along. And moreover, I'm working with the Tri-County group to see if we can get a whole regional approach to a common model, so that we all agree for childcare purposes, especially because we all have, teachers that might work in other towns, that we can agree to a common model among the Tri-County superintendents group. In fact, we met last week. I volunteered to take lead in trying to develop a draft, and we're meeting tomorrow as part of the superintendent's conference to flesh that out and see if we can come to some common agreement, and also some common agreement around what a 100% remote model would look like. Because last March, when we all had emergency remote learning happening, there wasn't time to have a common approach. And now we recognize that if we have to be fully remote again, it will be more robust. It will be a lot more required face-to-face through Google Meet or Zoom time. And it will be, for example, the commissioner has stated, it will be graded, there will be accountability, and it will be different from what we just had in the spring, because that was really a response to an emergency. And everybody did, I think, a good job, but we recognize that we need to do a better job.
Okay. Any other questions regarding our plan? Okay, so I'll move on. Anything on subcommittee reports, elementary school building committee? Denise, anything new?
No, I think everybody's seen the updates. So the big news from this week was that the tennis courts and pickleball courts opened up to the public. And then we'll have more updates after next week's meeting. That one will probably primarily be related to just the radon mitigation system. So we should have some additional updates on that.
Okay.
And timing.
On to old and new business. We have one thing to bring up under old business. We have an update on some furniture replacement.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
You may remember back in, I think it was in early June, when we were talking about the COVID-19 list. At the bottom of it, there was a list of potential furniture that we would need related to needs to create spacing, frankly, the social distancing. We have since done I think it was affectionately called pressure testing, if I recall, in both buildings. And we have come up with a list of furniture for all 3 schools that would be needed to create the distancing that we need. Now, in large part, what is happening here is we are swapping out tables for desks. That's what's happening at the high school level for the most part. That's what's happening at Clyde Brown, definitely. There are actually only about 10 desks that are being allocated to the middle high school to solve a particular problem, or maybe it's actually a couple of different situations in specific classrooms to create the distancing that we need to achieve the goals that the principal wants to achieve. The other thing that we're doing, again, we're trying to maximize every resource we have. You'll see that on the list that I provided, we have standing desks. So we looked at that and says, well, instead of just buying a whole bunch of desks, what if we also bought some stools to go with the standing desks? And so we're proposing to buy stools that go with all those standing desks. And in fact, that is another way that we can replace some of these tables and or expand the ability of us to create social distancing at, really all three levels of our educational system. So right now, I think, and I apologize, I have a different computer, so I can't pull up things like I usually can. If I remember, it was about $43,000 in furniture, roughly about $10,000 between delivery and if we opt for have the setup. I would tell you, given the quantity of furniture, the setup is a value because John obviously has a limited staff and has other things to deal with. This is all from a vendor that we have dealt with. It's the same desk that we've been buying for the middle high school. And in fact, in a long-term situation, it's kind of a great deal for us because once we're back, okay, crossing our fingers, to normal, those Clyde Brown desks that right now are replacing tables can move over to the middle high school as part of our desk replacement. And of course, Clyde Brown will go back to their tables. So this will not come out of operating funds. This will come out of one of three funding sources, MEMA, CARES, and I think those are really the primary sources that we're talking about. It's a slim possibility we might need to sneak a little bit of matching funds out of the $225 per student grant, which we'll know more about on Friday. But I don't think so. I don't think we're going to have to touch that money for this. So what we'd like to do, for obvious reasons, is get a blessing from the committee to go ahead, because there are timing issues, obviously, with furniture and lots of different things right now to get them for school.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Gibbons.
Terry, can the vendor deliver in time? So let's say we get you, have we talked to them and can they get you what you need in time?
I've talked to them repeatedly. This is part of what they call a specific quick ship program.
Okay.
Now, for example, I will tell you on the Zoom desks, they are the style that everybody wants, but they may be limited to one type of top. I know Tana was really wanting a gray top. I don't blame her. It matches some of the other desks that she has. We simply may not be able to get that to get the quick delivery. Okay. But I mean, I think that's a price you have to pay sometimes to do this. And I'm sure she would understand.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Gibbons.
I make a motion to approve. I'm gonna throw in just for everybody, and we can talk about it in further discussion. I'm gonna throw in the freight and the setup. So I'm gonna make a motion to approve the COVID-19 furniture purchases, inclusive of freight and setup.
Mhm.
I gotta do some math. Sorry. For a not to exceed amount. Oh, Mark, where are you?
I apologize. I don't have two screens, so I'd be able to do this for you.
No, it's fine. I'm
Number
joking
one.
around. So, yeah, exactly. I'm gonna say 55, not to exceed 55,000. It gives you a little cushion, Terry, on the setup.
That sounds great.
And okay, all right, not to exceed $55,000.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll be ordering tomorrow.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so correspondent, I guess I should ask Dave if is there any questions in the chat box? Nothing on YouTube. Okay. Alrighty. Then I think we are good. We do have an executive session, so we need a motion to end the meeting. Oh, wait, one just came in. Almost. We'll give them a second to copy it over to us. Are there any, I think that's to say survey results about extended day. Is there any update on extended day or survey results on extended day? Nancy, do you or Terry, do you know the answer to that?
I don't know about survey results. I do know anecdotally we've had people who are very anxious to find out if we're going to be operating in the fall. You know, certainly that's been part of our planning. Jean Noonan has been working, even though she's furloughed, throughout the summer on plans. And we have continuing meetings. In fact, we're probably having one with the elementary administration either the end of this week or the beginning of next week to talk about space that would be available in all three scenarios. Obviously, if it's a full remote extended stay, we'll be in the same situation. But if we have a hybrid or we have students in school, in all likelihood, we will be able to operate some form or fashion of extended day. But again, we don't know yet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think we can close the meeting and move to executive session. So we need a vote or a motion, I should say.
Madam Chair. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Mr. Conroy.
I make a motion that we adjourn from open session to move to executive session for the purpose of contract negotiations for union and non-union personnel and superintendent's evaluation, not to return to open session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, I need a roll call, huh? Mark Conroy.
Yes.
Steve Catalano.
Yes.
Denise Gibbons.
Yes.
Robin had to jump for an online class, so she is not here anymore, and I am an I. So motion carries. So so thank you. Thanks everyone for joining.
Hi, Jody.
Bye.
Adjourn.